Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon if you are east of the west coast of the U.S. Thank you for joining us today for the last NTSA Tech Growth Connect webinar of 2024. I'm Carolyn Logue. I'm delighted to be your host and moderator. I am director and co-founder of the Central Florida Tech Grove, and it is through our partnership with NTSA that we do this series of webinars each year. Joining me today, as you know from your registration, are Leslie Faircloth from Naval Air Warfare Center Training Systems Division. So used to saying not TSD, right? And Dan Ketchen with Technology Associates and Products, or better known as TAP. And together with them, we will be providing you some insight and guidance and advice, suggestions on making the most of ITSEC 2024. We do have the list of questions that each of you pre-submitted. We will get to many of those. Some of them, I'm going to apologize right up front, we probably will not get to, but we will do our best. There is a Q&A function for the webinar. Feel free to drop some additional questions in there if you like. Those will be monitored. Because joining us also today, off camera, but here with us in the room, is Damian Bailey, who is also with the Small Business Office at NOC-TSD, and he's going to be monitoring the Q&A. Before we get into the meat of the webinar, though, the main topic, I do want to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about Team Orlando and Tech Grove, in case you're not familiar with this community of excellence, this incredible concentration here in the Orlando area of modeling and training and simulation for human performance for the DoD, as well as other national security related entities. This is a collaboration by choice, as we say, that has existed for nearly 60 years, starting with the Navy and then the Army, and has grown over the years to include other federal entities, mostly in the DoD and national security space, as well as a number of organizations that are state and local, focused on economic development, focused on supporting technology innovation, and focused certainly on making sure that this modeling, simulation, and training industry continues to grow and be very robust. It's really anchored by the four main acquisition commands that are here in Orlando, right here in the Central Florida Research Park, where we are actually sitting today. Literally within walking distance are the Army's PEO STRI, Navy's NOC-TSD, Marine Corps' PM TRACES, and the Air Force's AFMS. You can see what those acronyms all mean right there on this slide. And these are the four lead entities for acquisition, driving research and development, driving acquisition of products and services for those four services. In addition, we have a number of other federal entities, mostly DoD and national security, and actually this slide, we're in the process of adding a few more logos to this slide that are members of Team Orlando. For example, one of those additions is Space Force. Their training command, STARCOM, which is officially at Patrick Space Force Base, is also a member of Team Orlando, as are a couple of other new DoD entities that will be present on this slide the next time you see it, hopefully. But the point being that this is a really unique community that provides you the opportunity, not just at ITSEC, but throughout the year, opportunities to engage with the government, industry that's already supporting these organizations, as well as academia that's engaged in this industry as well, and find those collaborations and opportunities to get into this space as well as grow your company and your organization. And just the whole point of this slide, I won't spend a lot of time on it, but the real point is that this is not just about logos on a slide. We don't just talk about the fact that we're a community. We actually all live together in a very walkable community right here in Research Park. A lot of industry here in this proximity to where the commands are, as well as in the local area, and certainly obviously across the country. Many of you are not here in the Orlando area, you're joining us from all over, but there is a very significant concentration right here. To my point earlier, obviously we're here to talk about ITSEC, which is the largest event that takes place each year in this modeling, simulation, and training space, with an extraordinary opportunity to learn, connect, find opportunities to collaborate, certainly find opportunities for partnerships and business, and to get engaged in this industry. But it is just one of the opportunities. Every month, right here in Orlando, there are events and initiatives and activities that take place that offer you some similar opportunities, and in some cases, maybe even easier access to some of the government officials, program managers, lab directors, prime contractors, subcontractors, academia, organizations that support companies that are moving into this DoD space. So while we're talking about ITSEC today, we really want to make sure you're cognizant of the fact that there is a regular cadence of opportunities to get involved and to get connected. And many of those are supported through and take place at the Central Florida Tech Grove. The Tech Grove is a Department of Defense funded innovation community and hub. We do have a physical location right here in the research part, but we are very much a virtual hub as well. Some of you have attended our events virtually, as well as having been here in person. So you know that we have a very robust calendar of opportunities for you to engage and sit right next to that representative from the prime contractor or from the government program office or from a university that's working directly with that government customer, and to meet other businesses that you can team with as well. One thing that sets us apart from almost all the other Department of Defense Innovation Centers is that we are funded by all 5 services: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Space Force, multiple parts of the Army, multiple parts of the Navy, as well as a few other Department of Defense entities. There's no other DoD Innovation Center that offers you that accessibility to a multitude of Department of Defense and national security entities with the direct access and engagement that we do. This is our swim lane, as we say, human performance, right? Cybersecurity penetrates everything. We have 3 pillars that you see detailed there. I'm not going to go into what those acronyms stand for. I think most of you probably know. But across the bottom of the slide, you see a list of those areas of capability, innovation, technology that are some of the, or most of the, key enablers for this area of human performance that we're focused on. So if you fit into any of those categories, which I'm sure most of you do, then you certainly are in the right place. And we hope that if you're not part of the Tech Grove community, you will connect with us and join our community. Tech Grove was established 5 years ago. We just started our 5th year to do these 3 things: to grow the number of organizations that are contributing and engaging in the defense industry base. We need more companies. We need more academia. We need more innovators and nonprofits to help support the needs of our national security organizations in getting solutions to our men and women that are serving our nation. And that takes place in a whole lot of different ways. Tech transfer, there's a number of things we do there, whether it's supporting acts, finding out about and exploring licensing of intellectual property that exists in our customers' laboratories to accelerate the development of a product or service that you may be pursuing, or whether it's supporting you as an SBIR awardee or other transaction authority awardee to get visibility, to find those commercialization partners and help continue to move those innovations into the marketplace. And finding solutions. If you are connected to Tech Grove, you know that we execute on prize challenges, tabletop exchanges, harvest days, SBIR days, all sorts of activities that we execute to go find the best and the most relevant potential solutions to problems that our government customers give us. And if you'd like to know more about that and opportunities to engage, I would love to talk to you. This is just a list that you see right now of many of the initiatives that we run in Tech Growth. We do each month put out a flyer. The November flyer will go out Friday, I believe, but you get a preview. Here it is. It's kind of a light month for us, actually, since it is a holiday month. But these are the opportunities that are public facing, which means they're open to you and anyone else that would like to come and engage either in person or virtually in most cases to, as we said, have the chance to connect with industry, government, academia, and listen to what the problems and needs of the government are. I put this example there of a prize challenge that we're currently executing for the Air Force. This is one of actually 3 prize challenges we have running right now. This one is still open for registration, as is a prize challenge that we're running for Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. They are seeking an immersive solution for hazardous situations training. So both those prize challenges, registration to participate closes Friday, the 29th at 11:59 p.m. So that's this Friday night. Please check those out on our website. And if you think at all you would like to consider participating, please register to participate. Many ways to connect with us and stay in the know about opportunities that I've talked about and some others that we will talk about during this webinar. And with that, we're going to close down the PowerPoint presentation and we're going to get to the real point of why we're here. Thank you for listening. But I think I did answer some of the questions that were pre-submitted too about what's Tech Grow and how do we get connected and stay involved? Are there other opportunities to showcase our technology? And so hopefully you heard that. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask Leslie and then Dan to share with you some of their thoughts and insights that from many years of being at ITSEC, we all have come away with, and we find ourselves communicating regularly to small businesses. So Leslie, you do this all year long, right? This is your job all the time, talking to small businesses about how to do business with the government, how to get connected to the government, how to tell your story. Yeah. So in the context of ITSEC in particular, what do you suggest?
Okay, well, I'd like to start off with, I guess, some of the more general, maybe even some of the like creature comforts, because it's really important. It's a massive conference.
Wear your sneakers.
Bring comfortable shoes, like for real.
For real, yeah.
Because I know that when I first went to ITSEC, I made the mistake of wearing very uncomfortable shoes and did not have any tucked in my bag. So I was, I was hobbling around. So
shoes and a jacket.
Comfortable shoes, layers, and snacks.
Water and snacks.
Water and snacks. Because you will be running from one booth, one meeting to the next, and you don't want to necessarily, you're not going to necessarily have time to stop. And sometimes if you do have time to stop, the line is really long because everybody else has the same ideas. So,
but isn't that a great networking opportunity to stand in line?
If you have the time.
If you have the time and you will talk to the people that you're standing next to.
I know that's happened to me, and it's led to a follow-on meeting. So always look for those opportunities to network, but because you can find yourself running frantically from one meeting to the next, make sure you got some snacks, because nobody likes to chat with a hangry person.
And especially if you have an exhibit and you're kind of confined to the booth and you don't want to leave, right? And so it's a special, pack your lunch.
Yes. So those are my creature comfort suggestions. Something else that I found really, really helpful for me personally since they launched it was downloading that ITSEC app. It didn't used to have an app. It didn't used to be a thing. And we used to have the paper, right? The printout stuff, which the app is really helpful because then you're not fumbling around through papers and you get like real-time updates. If something has changed, you don't have to be on the lookout or hear through the grapevine, but you're going to get those notifications on the app. So using the app is a great tool. So
I think also, but that reminds me that, the program, the full program is online and available. And I find it personally much easier to go through that program on the website with all the details and make my list, mark.
Yes.
I can go back to the mobile app then and tag what it is I want to do, but I find it easier to read by going through that full, very, very robust program.
Yes. I think that's a great suggestion, and becoming really familiar with that program is important, and it will help you to identify areas of interest you may not even have been aware of, certain papers or certain speakers that you really wanted to hear. So pay attention to that, read that upfront early, make a plan. Honestly, that's another big suggestion, is making sure that you don't come into the ITSEC conference with, a haphazard approach. Know why you're there. What are you looking to get out of it? And make a plan to target those people, those companies, those entities.
Events,
those events.
Because otherwise you will be disappointed and you'll feel like you wasted your time.
And it can be overwhelming if you don't have a plan and you just show up and you try to take it all in. It's that I don't recommend that. So I've emphasized making a plan, but be flexible, because things are going to change. Maybe you get that text or that call from that particular customer you were trying to reach, and maybe you didn't have them on your schedule. Now you've got to kind of reconsider. So make a plan, but be flexible. That's vitally important. Make sure that you're aware of the exhibit floor hours. That's something that I've noticed that people tend not to really understand. They think that the exhibit floor is open during the entirety of.
But they're different every day. The hours are slightly different.
They are. They are.
Good point.
Yeah. So that's super important as well. Also, kind of knowing the landscape for, when things happen, meaning like Monday is for the tutorials, Tuesday is when the opening ceremony happens, which is a surprise to newcomers.
Yeah, it's like, why wasn't it the first day?
Why wasn't it the first day? But it never is. The paper sessions and the special events are also, sprinkled throughout Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday focuses on those professional development workshops. So having that kind of an understanding.
This may be a good time to just kind of state the obvious, but depending on what kind of ticket you purchased, if you're an exhibitor, you have access to attend some special events and certainly access to the exhibit floor outside of the official exhibit hours. If you purchased a ticket just to go to the exhibits and visit all the exhibits, you're only going to be able to get access to the exhibit floor during the official hours. Believe me, the security team is very, very good at their job, and you will not get in. But you also don't have access to some of the events at all. And then, of course, the ultimate access is to purchase the full conference ticket, which gives you full access to all the papers, all the events, all the exhibit hall, and everything. So just be sure you know what you have access to as you're doing your planning.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to let the audience know, Damien and myself will be taking appointments from small businesses, about 20 minutes in length. So if you're interested in meeting with us, we are giving priority to those businesses that either have not previously spoken to us, or if a business is having a particular problem that they would like to talk with us about, or if they've got specific questions about an opportunity that's on our forecast, we would love to chat with you.
So state that up front. That should be your opening sentence in your message.
Yes.
I've never met with you before, so.
Yes, absolutely. And if you happen to have your own booth, or you happen to be exhibiting in another's booth and you have a capability that you want to showcase to us, let us know that.
Give them the booth number.
Yes, give us the booth number. We'll be sure to put you on our calendar and make sure that we get a visit over there to see what you got to show us. So, yeah.
You want, are there any best tips or practices you might suggest about how our guest today could engage with your Navy leadership or decision makers?
Yeah. So, and that's a question that we get a lot. I think it's really important, first of all, to understand who's who, right? So who is the Navy leadership? That information is available on
those
our
org
website,
charts are
the
there.
org charts,
Yeah,
right? And realize that there's not one single decision maker, right? Typically in our organization. So we have teams that address specific opportunities and work through specific contracting actions. And Damien and I are involved in nearly everything. So making sure that if you haven't met with one of us, that you at least come and introduce yourself so we know who you are and what you do and what you're interested in terms of opportunities as either a prime contractor or a subcontractor, right? So if you want to know, well, where do I find those opportunities? You're in luck. They're actually listed on our website. So that www.navare.navy.mil/NAWCTSD, not TSD. And there's a lot of information. Once you find the small business page, we do have a downloadable info sheet that will tell you information about, okay, well, who is NOC-TSD and what do they buy? Where do I find the opportunities? Where do I find information about these events how do you communicate with industry? So that info sheet is, like I said, it's fresh. If you've seen it before, it's been revised recently. We're always trying to improve that, not just the quality of the information, but the look and feel of the information sheet itself. And it's downloadable right on our website. If you have,
just put it in the chat.
Oh, wonderful. So that is a great starting point, because you'll hear a lot of folks say, do your homework before you approach a potential client, customer, government representative. And so if you're interested in doing business with the Naval Air Warfare Center Training Systems Division, especially as a small business, this should be your first stop. Yeah.
There's also,
you're about to hear that again.
Yeah.
I think it's also important because there tends to be a desire, especially on the part of small businesses, to want to meet our captain, our leader. And I think what you'll find, if you do approach him, he's going to refer you.
He's going to tell you, I have no authority to make this decision.
He's going to say, I don't have the budget. It's not my program. But he's
right.
going to refer you to the program managers, the contracting officers, the small business professionals. So you will get referred out.
Yeah. I just put a link to the research compendium in the chat as well.
Yeah.
Because if you have not looked at that to know if and where you fit within the NOC-TSD world, that's going to be critical.
Particularly for those innovative firms. Right. If you're an innovator, if you're a company that's maybe seeking or already participating in a small business innovation research program or SBIR, that research compendium is going to be particularly important for you.
The other link, Carolyn, you need to put in there is the TSIS line.
TSIS.
Because let me tell you what NOC-TSD does better than anybody else.
Yeah.
They have literally every one of their programs. They have a briefing slide all in one spot. They update it twice a year. They'll update it at ITSEC. And at the bottom of those, in addition to a description of the program, who the incumbent contractor is, they also have the name, phone number, and email address of the program manager.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that information is linked directly in the info sheet that Carolyn dropped in the
So these chat. 3 links that are in the chat, capture those, right? Because these are really going to help you in your planning, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I mean, Dan's chomping at the
He's
bit
ready.
over there.
I don't need to. Leslie knows how to do everything I know how to do. So my perspective on ITSEC is purely exhibit floor.
Which is critical, yeah.
And I've stood in the trade show booth of a large prime. I've stood in the booth of my small business clients, and I've worked the floor,
Walk the floor, yeah.
taking clients around, looking for new clients myself. And you're going to hear this recurring theme all day of planning and preparation. Because when you walk in for the first time, there's some questions here from first timers. Would you walk through the gates of Disney World and say, I wonder what I should do today? No, you're going to be looking at maps and descriptions of rides and where the food is and all of these things. And that kind of level of preparation is critical because there's so much to see. Which brings me to my second sort of tactic for the floor. Pace yourself. You've got 4 days. Now, granted, the first day and the second day, the trade floor is only open for 6 hours. Wednesday, it's open all day, and most of Thursday. Don't schedule yourself with back-to-back meetings all day.
Yeah.
My favorite question from the list that we got is, what do I do with these 100 business cards that I have at the end of the week, and I have no idea who these people are or what they did? So a trick for that would be, you could be old school like me and put space on the back of your business card to take notes. But what I encourage you to do is, after you have a meet with somebody and you have that card, find yourself a little quiet spot, get out your phone, start a voice recording, and just do 30 seconds of what you just talked about with this person and what the next steps that the two of you agreed are. And if you're really tricky, you'll have one long continuous one that you just keep adding to so that you can later upload that to your AI-based translator. I use MeetGeek, and you get back a document with your entire week of contacts laid out in a single document, which number one is a trip report for those of you trying to justify your ROI to your employer. And number two, it's easy copy paste into your CRM platform or your other sales platform.
So you can track that ROI, right?
Track that ROI. And ROI is not measured in dollars at this conference.
No.
It's not a sales conference. It's not a fashion conference where you take orders for 12 red and 6 blue. It is a BD conference, a business development conference. Your ROI is in contacts, meaningful contacts that are going to lead to meaningful conversations. You're still going to have that classic sales 12 touches before you get an order from anybody. This is going to be your first touch with a lot of that.
Yeah.
So we did have a question or two about, how do I convince my management that it's worth us going to ITSEC, right? And how do I measure ROI? Well, I think a big part of the answer to both those questions is you have a plan. Of how you're going to pre-plan, how you're going to execute, and how you're going to follow up, and how you're going to measure that ROI. If you walk in and give that to your boss, even if in the past he said, well, I didn't see any value out of it, well, that may have been because that wasn't in place before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you need to be specific with your requests. It's a lot easier to get a meeting with somebody from the government if you have a very specific thing that you articulate that you do. And you just say, I'm a small business, I'm looking to get involved in this industry, and I would like to meet with some people from the government, you're not going to get very much headway. But if you can be specific about, we do this is what we do better than anybody else, or we have these particular experts.
Yeah.
I have, 3 retired general officers on our board of advisors, and they have said that this particular vector on AI is perfect for modeling and simulation. Who can I talk to in NOC-TSD or PPO STRI about this particular thing? You're going to get a good, meaningful conversation.
Yeah, don't lead with what does your company do? What problem does your company solve for the government? Lead with your capabilities. Don't lead with, here's my socioeconomic status. I'm an 8A, I'm a service disabled vet. That might be important, but nothing is more important than understanding what problem you're solving and what capabilities you're bringing to the table.
And that's true whether you're trying to get to government people or large business primes,
Yeah.
because they're going to want to know the same thing. They want to know what you can do and what you have done.
Mhm.
And to just say, well, we develop AR, VR systems, that's not good enough to
No.
get you a meaningful conversation.
Right.
You need to be more specific.
Yeah, how are we, what makes us different from maybe everybody
Yeah,
else
what is
or
that
most of the other
discriminator?
discriminator, right?
Yeah, if you can go in and say, well, we developed a AR, VR system for Tinker Air Force Base
solved
specifically to
this
do this
problem,
thing, and we
right.
got a contract for it, and we have past performance. Now I want to talk to you. Now
Or-
you're an asset to
Now
me.
you've got my interest.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Or we've been on a team with, we've been a subcontractor to.
That's also very meaningful information.
Keeping in mind that the best path is not always a direct engagement with the government
Yes.
or necessarily a prime contract, especially if you don't have a lot of past performance.
Yes.
And maybe you don't want to necessarily deal with all that it takes to be a prime
That is
contractor
true.
sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do need to validate your point on the shoes, because I looked last year, and every day at the conference, I had 12 to 16,000 steps.
Oh, that
Yeah.
that is not.
And that's
a
not
surprise.
hard to do. at all.
No.
No,
Yeah.
that was with a third of my time in one of my clients' booths, too.
Oof. Yeah. Lots of time on your feet.
And you've got to have your pitch, too, because as you spoke about earlier, when you're standing in line, you've got to have that 15 to 30-second pitch, because everybody is going to ask what your company does.
Oh yes, absolutely.
That's why we're all there. You're constantly looking for that pop-up conversation that leads to something, solving a piece of a problem that you didn't have solved, and that's the last piece you need for your solution.
Yep.
So have your pitch ready.
Yeah.
Practice it, stand in front of the
Practice it.
mirror,
Yeah.
record yourself. All the tricks that Caroline and I learned in our Toastmasters Club here at UCF. Definitely have that pitch ready to go.
Let's talk a few minutes about, what if you're an exhibitor, that's one thing, but even if you're not an exhibitor, you're there attending, and maybe you have a tablet or a phone, and you're ready to show a short demo of something. Really going to encourage you to not depend on the Wi-Fi access if you're on the exhibit floor.
Yes.
If you're an exhibitor, or even if you're just walking the exhibit floor, there's so much traffic that my advice to companies is always, whatever you want to demo, have it running local, with your phone or your tablet or whatever. Any suggestions to that point?
Well, in deference to our friends at NTSA who are hosting this,
Yes.
I do feel the need to point out that if you are not an exhibitor, you are not allowed to be doing a whole lot of demonstrating anyway.
Yeah, this is really during the network. If you're meeting with someone,
Yes.
it's so don't want to imply that you're a mobile exhibitor, right? Yeah, no,
Right.
but in the meetings, like you're having a conversation with somebody, you just want to pull up a quick example, right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
unless you specifically set up a meeting of 15 to 30 minutes
Right.
somewhere
Right.
in the, in
Exactly.
a coffee shop or
Yeah.
whatever,
Mhm.
you're not really going to get
Correct.
anybody's time to
Time.
go through a
Exactly.
significant demo anyway.
Right.
You want to have a few images or a briefing,
Short
a
video.
1-page, 2-minute video or
Right.
something. That's fine, but no more than that.
Very short, get to the point, because there's a lot that we see, so it's hard to stand out and be
Right.
memorable.
Yeah.
One other thing that I would like to share about demos, booth visits, or even just describing capabilities is know who you're talking to.
Mhm.
If you're speaking to a subject matter expert in the engineering field that your technology is built from, by all means, geek out, talk all of the specific lingo that will really mean something to that person. But if you're communicating with me, who has a couple business degrees, and I, have a very surface level understanding of technologies, break it down in a way that is meaningful to me. Like, explain to me what problem is it solving? What is it doing, without diving into the technical details? Because you'll find a variety of people with different backgrounds and experiences, and not everybody is a technical expert in your technology.
That also applies, I would think, to the materials. Like if you are an exhibitor,
Mhm.
or if you're attending and you have some some capability sheets with you to
Mhm.
share with folks that you meet, or something.
Yeah.
You want a variety of materials. Is that correct?
Yeah, and tailored towards the audience that you are targeting. It's not as important to me to understand that you've got the ability to, provide IT service or IT supplies, because that's not what we buy. But tell me how you might support modeling and simulation training systems with your IT equipment or your IT service. That's more meaningful. So it's a little nuance.
Yeah.
Right.
In terms of handouts,
Yes.
let's talk
you,
about that.
you know where I am.
There's
the reason I asked that
hundreds and
question.
hundreds of exhibitors. So if you grab the stuff from every booth, you would need
Another suitcase.
Yes.
another suitcase. Exactly. So I'm a big believer in less is more.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the postcard.
Postcards.
The postcard, something this big,
Yeah.
back and front color with links, a meaningful picture, your contact information, so that they're not looking at a card and wondering about it. Like, oh yeah, I remember that person, or I remember that company. Single sheets, front and back, are okay, but don't hand somebody a 50-page catalog or
It's just
detailed descriptions. Yeah, it's too much. And if you do, and I do have to get this out there because I've had my own booth at ITSEC, courtesy of the incubator in UCF here. If you're going to take things that vendors bring things to give them away. Most don't want to take any back with them, but they do cost money.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's just simply good manners. If you're going to take something,
Talk
a
to
nice
them.
pen, give them 30 seconds
Stop
to give
and
you
talk
their
to them.
pitch,
Yeah.
look at their thing. If it's an area that you're not necessarily interested in, that's fine. Just be polite and say thanks. If I meet anybody who's interested in that, I'm going to send them back here.
Great point.
It's just good manners,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about networking, because I find that when a lot of folks go to ITSEC, that it is overwhelming, right?
Mhm.
And especially if you're an exhibitor, you're there on the exhibit floor all during the day, but how do you network outside of that, right? Going back to a comment we made earlier, if you do go grab a bite to eat in one of the little cafes or the food areas, or you're standing in line, be sure you have your business cards with you. Be sure you have those postcards with you, and talk to everybody that's around you. Find out who they are. It's amazing the conversations you can have sitting, eating your sandwich or your salad, or standing in line waiting for pizza or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But also, and this is going to make for a long day, some of the best conversations will happen when the exhibit hall closes and you go across the street to the hotel, to the bar area, and you sit down to somebody that's hanging out there.
Oh, yeah.
And there are a lot of events that go on that various companies host. If you if there's a company that you're really interested in perhaps meeting with, somebody there, reach out and see if they're going to be hosting an event at ITSEC. They'll gladly invite you because they're trying to get a lot of folks there. But what else would you suggest?
So a couple of the days, there's a happy hour at the end of the exhibit hall. The last hour of the exhibit time is a happy hour. And even if you don't drink, still go, because you'll meet a lot of people. And it may be the only way that you can get to one of the large primes and get to some of those people who are running around all day going and having meetings and everything, but they'll be in the booth for the happy hour.
Yeah.
And you'll also meet a lot of other like-minded people, small businesses who are trying to get involved. And that's a really great way. You did mention there's a lot of nighttime events, and don't be shy about asking, are you doing anything this week? Is that you open to new attendees? I'd like to be a part of that.
Yeah, don't be shy. That's a big one for some folks that just kind of expect, well, I went and I didn't really meet anybody. Well, sometimes that does require you to move outside of your comfort zone, and there are opportunities to network all day and into the evening, just like we've already talked about. So whenever you find yourself, next to others, just get curious, ask questions. What do you do? Here's what I do. What are you hosting or attending any events?
What would you recommend?
What do you recommend? Yeah, don't be
And
shy.
that's why I said don't pack things back to back to back too. If you're interested in cyber, there's a cyber pavilion on the exhibit floor.
Yeah.
Where they have people come and give talks.
Yeah.
What better way to find other people in your space if you're cyber than to go to that, get there a little early, stay a little late, meet some people, whether it's the speaker or whether it's other people in the audience.
Yeah.
Cyber pavilion, healthcare pavilion, serious games showcase, great way to meet companies in the gaming space. I'm going to put in a plug also, since I do a lot of work for support the ecosystem of learning, the STEM presence at ITSEC. This year on the stage area in that part of the exhibit hall, we are having a number of university presentations for universities that have significant programs in modeling and simulation and game development and immersive technologies. We'll be giving some short briefs about the work they do, their capabilities, their student work pipeline. So great way to come meet a lot of the academics folks that are going to be at ITSEC, because sometimes they're a little harder to find. They don't always all have exhibits there. So
True. And the afternoon meal, the lunchtime meal is another great way to meet people, right? You're sitting at a big table. I always sit at a table where I don't know anybody.
I was just going to suggest that. Sit down where you don't know anybody. And it gets you out of your comfort zone, and you may meet some, potential clients, customers, team members.
And it's a low intensity situation.
Yeah.
Everybody's there to kind of take a break. So guard comes down a little bit. It's a little looser conversation.
There were a few questions about how do I get contact information for specific individuals that will be at ITSEC prior to ITSEC. And there is no source for that. The attendee registration list is not available publicly, which reminds us that we want to make sure you know that if you registered, all those emails that you are receiving offering to sell you the attendee list for ITSEC, hit delete as soon as possible, because none of them are valid. Nobody has access to that attendee registration list other than NTSA. So please do not spend your money on those spam emails, false sales advertisements.
Don't fall for it.
Let's see if we're going to quickly look through these questions that were pre-submitted and jump on a couple of them while we're watching the chat, the Q&A as well. Someone asked, and I love this question, is there a central location where we can look for volunteer opportunities? Seems like each organization looks for volunteers on its own. And that's sort of true. So depending on what kind of volunteer activities you're interested in, there certainly are plenty. I am going to put Renee's email, or she'll put it in the chat, I think, for us probably. Renee Desmond with NTSA. She has let us know that if you want to email her with information about what kind of volunteer opportunities you're looking for, she'll get you connected. I will put in another plug that if you're interested at all in helping in anything related to STEM, whether it's the career fair, whether it's the ecosystem of learning on the exhibit floor, please reach out to me and be happy to get you plugged in there. Speaking of career fair, there were a couple of questions about, as a job seeker, how do I get connected to organizations that may be hiring? We have a career fair at ITSEC. If you go to the ITSEC website, to the education tab, under there, you will find the page for the career fair with information about that. We started that probably 6 years ago, and it has just grown and grown tremendously. There will be government entities there. There will be companies there that are actively looking for talent and workforce. It's obviously not everybody that's hiring. So in addition to participating in the career fair, if you are a job seeker, this is again where pre-planning comes in to play. Look at the exhibitor list. identify who are the organizations that you might want to talk to and let them know that you're available. And if you don't know specific names of companies, there you can go to the exhibitor directory and you can select by category based on what they do, what their primary area of capability is, or some characteristics of the company. So use that and have a list of companies that you might want to target and go talk to them and find out if they're looking for talent. I will point out that the HR people are not at ITSEC. These are business development folks. They are the technical folks. So they may not know, but if you have skills and capabilities and experience that are relevant to what that company's doing, then those folks that are there are great folks to talk to find out more about what they're doing, and then go look at the company website probably.
Yeah, for job seekers, the really large companies and the really small companies are probably your best bet, because the larges are going to have a desk with a person always manning the desk specifically to direct you to whomever. And even if there's nobody from HR there, they will probably know who you should talk to back in the organization. And then the very smalls are always looking for part-time, full-time, specific talent. So if you do have very specific skills, that's a good track.
Yeah.
I do want to answer one of these questions that I marked in advance. So there's a question here: how can NTSA help academia to connect industrial leaders and government decision makers and get input from them to reform our curriculum to meet industrial employers' needs? I can't speak for NTSA. However, I'm privileged to sit on the board of the National Center for Simulation. And that is one of NCS's strategic goals, is to prepare the next generation of workers for this industry. So whoever asked that question and anybody who has a like need, I strongly encourage you, go out to National Center for Simulation's website and contact George Charis, who's the CEO, or Neil Finkelstein, who's the COO, and they will engage with you and show you how you can participate in that and see what materials NCS has generated over the years to help with that.
And if you are from academia and you're joining us today, thank you very much. But this is where I want to put in a plug for the university cohort that is part of NTSA. And that cohort is made up of the universities and colleges that are members of NTSA and NDIA. We have a monthly call that we do to share information. That's part of how the university presentations this year in the STEM area came about. But on Wednesday morning of ITSEC, if you go to the program, you will see there is a university cohort meeting on Wednesday morning. This year, for that meeting, we have invited representatives from 4 different other transaction management companies to come talk about other transaction agreements. Because I find, I do work for the University of Central Florida, and I interact with a lot of our faculty that we're trying to get enticed to come to Tech Grove to find, explore opportunities. And very few of our faculty know or understand other transaction authorities. And they're always looking for opportunities to engage with industry and to get industry feedback and to find those opportunities to collaborate. So just a plug for the university cohort meeting on Wednesday morning here. Let's see if we have any other.
Wasn't there a question? What's the coolest thing you've seen?
There was. I would be remiss if I didn't address the question that was addressed directly to me, which was of your many years of attendance at ITSEC, can you share one of your most memorable experiences and its impact on your career with DoD? So I've had a few particularly memorable experiences, but really there's kind of 2 that stand out. And the first one was, for those who don't know, I have a contracting background. So I started out my DoD career as a contract specialist. And my first year at ITSEC, I just had no idea what to expect. I was blown away by the sheer volume of companies and the breadth and depth of the capabilities that were on the floor. I really had no idea And it was a little intimidating at first because I felt very out of my element. I was still learning how to spell DOD, and contracting, trying to, understand the contracting piece. But then I was, kind of thrust into this environment where there was all this really cool tech, and there was just so much of the lingo that I didn't understand. So it was very intimidating at first, but especially from the tech side. So just be aware, if you've never been, it can feel intimidating and overwhelming, but it's also very exciting.
Yeah, just take a deep breath and again, plan ahead, find those things that seem most interesting and most relevant to you. Make sure you do those, and then just go with the flow for everything else.
There was one more experience that I had that was particularly memorable, and it was the first time that I actually tried out an immersive sim.
Yeah.
And it really it sucked me right in. And I'm not a video game, I'm not a gamer, I don't do any of that stuff. So again, it's like, I might be a little reluctant, but I went for it. And it was very interesting to me that I immediately felt this environment was so realistic, and I started to have the physiological effects, the heart's racing, the breath is increasing, you're excited, you feel fear, what have you. Right. And what really blew me away was this particular sim was produced entirely by a small business.
There you go.
So that's really one of the first things that kind of hooked me into the small business profession and having an appreciation for the capabilities that our small businesses really do have. It's really quite impressive.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things I wanted to mention here. In addition to the company spending money to get booths and bring people in and have handouts, please don't be afraid to climb under the hood.
Yeah.
Try the stuff out.
Yeah.
Like, you're not imposing on anybody. I mean, I have several clients where they have AR, VR stuff, and you'll go like 2 hours and nobody will put it on. They just want to kind of talk
about it,
or just look at the screens or something.
They're afraid they're afraid they're going to look silly because they don't quite know what they're doing.
Look, if you crash the plane or shoot a friendly, it's okay. That's why it's in VR. Yes. And that's why it's training.
And the people and the exhibitor staff, they're dying. They so want to help somebody learn how to use it.
They do. I think they really enjoy the people who are not as familiar or experienced. Then they seem to really enjoy it. So embrace
great feedback for the company for someone to step into their platform and try it out who's not as experienced, right?
Because their trainees may not be real good with the technology, and it's valuable to know. We have to make it simpler. We have to get away from paddles and go to hand movements or something. That's very valuable information.
That human performance again.
Absolutely. Yeah. A few other questions that I just spotted here that may be relevant to more than the person that asked it is, there was an interesting question about the tutorials on Friday, those longer workshops and tutorials, and if someone's not looking for continuing education credit, is it worth going? Absolutely. I have never taken advantage of the CE units, frankly, that those offer, but every year I pick at least one to go to. And here's why. Yes, it's another day. Gonna maybe need to fly home on a Friday night, which is not the ideal time to get to the airport, right? Or Saturday morning. Stay in Orlando for a few more days. We'd love to have you. But those tutorials and workshops, it's a smaller group, and it's a group that's there that's very interested in learning about, or already it's engaged in that topic area. It's a wonderful time to network, but the professional learning and professional development opportunities that offers is really amazing. You just learn about needs and work that's going on in the government, in companies and academia that you're really not going to learn about otherwise. And same thing with the paper presentations. If you have purchased the full conference registration, it's really tempting to spend a lot of time on the exhibit floor, I think, but please don't neglect the paper presentations. There's a lot of them, and there's a lot going on simultaneously. So again, you'll need to look at that full program, which is available on the website yet. The program's not on the app right now. I think the app, as Renee reminded me, is just the exhibitor information, but the full program will be there soon. But it is on the website. So look at those papers and see which topic areas are most interest to you, because that is, I find, sometimes one of the best places to meet people where there's a shared interest.
Yes.
Right.
Not just that, maybe you can address this, Leslie, but are you more likely or equally likely to find a decision maker, a thought leader from within not TSD at a paper session or a briefing upstairs as opposed to endlessly wandering around the floor?
It does concentrate that population in a particular area. It's kind of like fishing, right? You'll have a better chance of meeting somebody at those sessions. That's a really good point.
Great point. I think there were a few questions as well about who's going to be at ITSEC this year. I did talk to the folks at NTSA yesterday, actually, and asked them this question. We asked them, and right now, the registration trend is that this ITSEC will be the biggest ever, which means 18, 19, 20,000 people probably.
Yeah.
The international attendance will be proportionally, I think, about the same. If you've not been to ITSEC before, there is a significant attendance from particularly Europe, South America, Africa, but particularly the European, NATO countries tend to be heavily represented, some of the Asian military entities as well. That's usually what, maybe about 20%. Renee, you may have to help us on that. But it's a decent proportion. In fact, there are some countries that even have pavilions on the floor.
Yeah, Canada
usually does, and Australia. I'm not sure who else will this year. So
Brazil's had them in the past.
there you go. So great opportunity to find some foreign military sales, international collaborations. So don't neglect that.
And that's part of your ROI and your justification for going is where else are you going to be able to get around thousands of people from other militaries, partner nations to see your stuff?
Yeah.
You know, unless you're going to go over there, that would be one way, but
a little expensive.
That's a lot more expensive than coming to the city beautiful.
But this is a way for you to maybe make that connection that gives you justification to make that trip, right? Yeah. There was also a question about will there be other government agencies besides DoD on the floor? And the answer is yes. In fact, some of them even have exhibits, right?
Homeland always has
Homeland
a booth.
Security is always there. Sometimes energy, NASA. I don't know about transportation this year, but there's not a single federal agency that is not utilizing simulation and training in some way or other. And many of them are moving very aggressively into it. We hear it at TechPro because we get calls from a lot of them, actually, or some of them are members of Team Orlando, like Homeland Security, for example, and the Veterans Health Administration. So yes, there absolutely will be representatives from other government entities. It's certainly not the majority, but they will be there along with academia, along with, I mentioned other transaction consortia. If you have not looked into the opportunities available through other transaction authorities, that is a non-FAR based acquisition instrument that DoD is heavily utilizing. There are lots of consortia. There are companies that manage those consortia. There will be a number of them that have exhibits on the floor too. So take advantage of the opportunity to stop and talk to them and find out about the opportunities available to you there as well. Let's see, do we have some Q&A we've not answered? Yeah, because we are getting right up against the timeline.
So coolest thing I want to bring up.
Coolest thing, yeah.
For diversion after going through all the modeling, simulation, and training stuff. In the, I guess it's the STEM area.
Yeah.
Larson Motorsports, which is based out of the Florida Institute of Technology down in Melbourne.
Thank
they always have a drag racer And what's really cool is sometimes Elaine, the driver, will be there, but the entire car is built by students at FIT,
And
they
UCF.
do the marketing,
And UCF.
and they do, okay.
Yeah, no, about half the students are UCF.
Okay. And they also run all of the business operations and the marketing and everything. It's an amazing story, and it's really cool. And how often do you get to see a drag racer up close?
Cool. They will have their new dragster there this year, and a new exciting exhibit, part to their exhibit. Let's just put it that way. But I would ask you, we'll wind up on this part, the ecosystem of learning, which is in the back right corner of the exhibit hall. If you've not been there, the serious games showcase is there. So please come by and see the serious games and experience them and vote for those. You'll find that information actually in your when you get your registration badge. There'll be a ballot there. But we will have a number of other organizations that are executing on STEM activities, either for the DoD entities or their STEM programs that are national, like First Robotics. You got to come see those kids and those teams with these robots they built. It's just so much fun. And all of these organizations you can get involved in, no matter where you're from in the U.S. That's why they're there. And then we do have Larson Motorsports, which just is such a great example of how modeling is used. And some of the amazing technologies that go into building these jet engine dragsters. And Elaine is the driver. She's a world-class, record-breaking driver. She will be there. And then the stage where you can come hear the university presentations, as well as presentations from the STEM organizations, some other presentations as well. So there's a special event that goes on there. But we could go on and on. I know it just kind of never ends. So let's see if there's any last question here before we wind up, because I think we are. All right. I think we've answered all the questions in the Q&A. I believe we've tackled a lot of the questions on your list. I know there's a lot we didn't get to. So if you submitted a question and you want to talk to one of us about it, please go ahead and send an email. Leslie and Damien's email I put in the chat, so they can make appointments for you. Awesome. If you have other questions, any of your other questions you want to have follow-up conversation on, please just email techgrove@ucf.edu. techgrove@ucf.edu. I'll put that in the chat. And I promise you that I will respond. I'll get you connected to Dan. If I can't answer or don't want to, I'll send you to Dan. But there were some other questions on here that certainly from a tech growth perspective would be very applicable to answer. So thank you. Hopefully you found this of value. The recording will be up on the NTSA website in the next 48 hours. And we look forward to seeing you at ITSEC.
Yeah.
Right?
See you there.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week, everybody. Happy Halloween.